Saving $10,000 doesn't make you rich, but it permanently rewires how you think. After this point, decisions feel different, stress changes, and your future splits into two paths. Most people never notice when this happens, or why everything feels easier after. Let me show you the exact moment things quietly change. Saving $10,000 isn't about wealth, it's about control. Most people live in a state of constant financial fragility where a single bad week could ruin their entire month. When you have $1,000, you have an emergency buffer. That's enough to cover a flat tire or a broken microwave, but it's not enough to change your life. It's a reactive amount of money, but when you hit that 5-figure mark, you transition into a decision buffer. This is the psychological tipping point where you stop being a passenger in your own life. You start to feel a sense of financial breathing room that is completely foreign to the average person. You stop panicking, you stop rushing, and you start seeing opportunities others can't. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why millionaires obsess over this first milestone and why it is the hardest, yet most important leap you will ever make in your journey toward financial freedom. The first major change is that your stress response shrinks. Think about the last time your car made a strange noise or you received an unexpected medical bill. For most people, that sound or that envelope triggers an immediate spike in cortisol. It's a feeling of how am I going to handle this, followed by a frantic mental calculation of which bills can be pushed to next month. When you have $10,000 sitting in a liquid account, that same car repair or medical expense stops feeling like a catastrophic event and starts feeling like a minor inconvenience. It's just an invoice. Small emergencies stop being personal failures or signs that the world is against you. They become simple transactions. This mental calm is what unlocks the next shift in your behavior. When you aren't constantly in fight or flight mode over your bank balance, your brain finally has the capacity to think about the long term. This calm is where people actually start winning because they are no longer making choices based on fear. This leads directly into the second change. You stop making desperate decisions. Scarcity is a powerful force that clouds judgment. When you have no money, you are forced to say yes to things that are bad for you. You say yes to toxic jobs because you can't afford to miss a single paycheck. You say yes to high interest debt because you need a quick fix for a temporary problem. You say yes to rushed, risky investments because you feel behind and want a shortcut. But after saving $10,000, you gain the power of no. You realize you have the ability to walk away from a bad situation. You gain the gift of optionality. If a boss treats you poorly, you don't have to quit immediately, but you know you could survive for months while looking for something better. You have time to think instead of just reacting. Most people never get ahead because they're always one decision away from panic, but $10,000 buys you the time to make the right choice instead of the desperate one. The third change is that you finally see how money actually grows. Up until this point, your focus has likely been entirely on survival. You've been trading time for money in a linear fashion, but at $10,000, the shift from survival to strategy begins. This is where you start to understand the difference between an emergency fund and investing. You begin to see your money as a tool rather than just a way to pay for things. You start to realize that if you put this money into a high yield account or a basic index fund, it starts making money while you sleep, even if it's just a few dollars a month at first. The realization that your money can work for you is a massive psychological breakthrough. This is the launch pad, not the finish line. It's the moment where you stop looking at the price of things and start looking at the value of your capital. This is where confidence quietly replaces fear, and you begin to adopt a true money mindset that prioritizes long-term stability over short-term gratification. As you cross this threshold, your identity starts to shift. This is perhaps the deepest psychological hook of the entire process. Most people carry a self-narrative that says, "I'm just bad with money," or "I'll never be able to save." When you hit $10,000, that old identity dies. You can no longer tell yourself you're incapable of discipline because the proof is sitting in your account. You transition from someone who tries to save to someone who can handle money. This shift makes every future habit easier. Discipline starts to feel less like a forced chore and more like a natural extension of who you are. You begin to value your own security more than the temporary thrill of a purchase. This shift is subtle, but it's the difference between staying stuck and compounding forward. Once you prove to yourself that you can accumulate 5 figures, the leap to 6 figures no longer feels like an impossible dream. It feels like a mathematical financial certainty. However, it's important to discuss what $10,000 does not change. There is a common myth that once you hit this milestone, all your problems will vanish and you'll feel like a different person. That isn't true. You're not rich yet. You're just stable. Life isn't suddenly perfect. You still have to deal with difficult relationships, health issues, and the daily grind of your career. Problems don't disappear. They just change shape. If you expect $10,000 to solve your unhappiness, you will be disappointed. This honesty matters because if you have unrealistic expectations, you might get discouraged and spend the money when you realize you don't feel wealthy. You must understand that $10,000 is a foundation, not a penthouse. It gives you a solid place to stand, but you still have to build the rest of the house. Despite the benefits, this is also the phase where most people lose their advantage. Once the initial excitement of hitting the goal wears off, lifestyle creep begins to set in. You see that balance and think, I've worked so hard, I deserve a reward. You start justifying larger purchases, a newer car, a more expensive vacation, or a wardrobe upgrade. Another trap is taking risky bets. Because you finally have some extra cash, you might feel tempted to gamble it on a speculative stock or a friend's unproven business idea, thinking you can afford to lose it. But $10,000 is fragile. It is a seed that hasn't grown into a tree yet. If you eat the seed, you'll never get the shade. If you protect this phase, it protects your future, but if you mismanage it now, you'll find yourself right back at zero, wondering where it all went. So how do you lock in the $10,000 advantage? You need a system that removes emotion from the equation. First, separate your savings. This money should not be in your primary checking account where you see it every time you buy a coffee. It should be in a separate, dedicated, high-yield savings account that is slightly harder to access. Second, automate your contributions. Even if it's just a small amount, keep the momentum going so you never feel like the job is done. Finally, avoid touching it emotionally. This money has one job: to provide you with peace of mind and future opportunity. It is not a slush fund for wants. Treat it with the respect that a foundation deserves. By creating these barriers, you ensure that your hard work doesn't evaporate during a moment of weakness. Ultimately, $10,000 doesn't change your life in the way a lottery win does. It changes how you move through life. It changes the way you look your boss in the eye, the way you sleep at night, and the way you plan for the next decade. It provides a level of dignity and autonomy that the majority of the population will never experience. If you're close to this goal, protect your momentum at all costs. Every dollar you save now is worth more in psychological freedom than any dollar you will save later. If you've already passed this milestone, take a moment to look back and realize just how much your perspective has shifted since you had nothing. Saving $10,000 is the ultimate proof that you are in control of your destiny. If you found this perspective helpful and want more realistic, calm advice on mastering your finances, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know. Now, I want to hear from you. How close are you to that $10,000 mark? Or if you've passed it, what was the biggest change you noticed? Leave a comment below and let's start a conversation. Remember, the first 10,000 is the hardest, but it's the one that changes everything. Keep going, stay disciplined, and I'll see you in the next one.